All right, welcome back everybody to the remote readiness training that we're putting on for you today. Hope you guys enjoyed your lunch. We're going to get started back up again. Before we do, I just want to let you guys know and remind you that all of this training that we're providing today is going to be recorded, and it's going to be hosted and set up in the FRC in a module called the RTR, Remote Teaching Readiness. So if you missed something or you want to go back and replay something, all of that information is going to be provided for you through multiple videos in the RTR. And in the meantime, you can still check out the RTR because we have already set up a number of different resources and job aids to help walk you through these tasks that you're going to have to perform when you're setting up for your remote class. So again, thank you so much for coming. I'm Jordan Berry, instructional designer here at HACC. This next session, we are going to talk about assessment and how to assess your students in Brightspace D2L. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to log us into D2L. And I'm going to give you guys just an overview of the major functions that D2L offers for faculty to assess their students, creating quizzes, creating Dropbox for student assignments, and for setting up their gradebook so that you can input grades and so that students can track their progress through the course virtually, all through D2L. So once you log into your D2L class, you'll see at the top, the nav bar here that Joe already went through, a number of options. The first thing that we're going to do is have you guys set up your grade book. That's probably the first step that we want to take before setting up assessments, as it'll make things go a lot more smoother, and it will give you a better understanding of how to use this tool and how what capabilities it has to display grades for students. So you can enter the grades section in a number of ways, either through the grades button on the nav bar, or if you go into enter course, there's also a grades button underneath the assessment section. We'll go in here, and the first time that you select grades, you'll be brought to the setup wizard. You'll see once we're in grades, we have 4 tabbed options. If it's the first time that you've come in here, the default will be the setup wizard, and the setup wizard is a way for you to set up your grade book so that it's ready for you to start creating assignments and entering grades for your students. So before you do anything, you have to go through the setup process in the setup wizard after you click the grades button. So scroll down to the bottom of the page and you'll see a start button. All right, so you'll see that there's 7 steps in this process, and I'll walk you through each of the steps. Now, you're going to set up grade books that are best and custom tailored for your class and for your needs and for your students, but I'll give you an example of the most standard approach to setting up your grade book. So you'll see in the first section will be the grading system. How do you want to set up your points and your point value for your assignments? Typically, instructors use just simple point values. It's easy to maintain, and it's easy for students to understand where they gained their points and how much individual assignments are worth. Of course, you could do a weighted system. That takes a little bit more setup, and you can create formula, which I wouldn't advise if you're a new user. These are custom defined formulas that are similar to weighted grading systems, but they have a little bit more different functionality. So very basic option that you probably want to choose if it's your first time using D2L would be the point system. So we'll go ahead and click continue. And your next step is to choose the option for how your final grade is going to be released. So some instructors like their final grade automatically released to students so that they can view it at any time in the grade book, and so that whatever assignments that they've completed will all be tallied up and all be displayed so that they can see their overall grade in the course. It is a nice option to keep selected so that students can keep a running track of what their grade is in the class at all times. Of course, if you don't want to have this option, you can deselect it, but then you'll be required to publish the final grades for students to see it, what their overall score is in the class. So you'll have to do that step manually. So for our purposes, we'll automatically release the final grade to students and we'll continue. Number 3 is grade calculations. So this section is asking you, what do you want to do with ungraded items in your class? So say, for example, you have a quiz set up and it's set up to automatically grade that quiz and send the value to the grade book. What if a student doesn't take that quiz? What do you want the grade book to do with that ungraded item? Do you want the grade book to treat that ungraded item and just drop it and not calculate it into the overall grade? Or do you want to treat that ungraded item as a 0, so as though they didn't submit it? Default is that you would just drop the ungraded item. It's the default for a reason. I think this is probably the best approach to take, because if you choose to treat ungraded items as 0 and you put a new assignment in there and haven't yet gotten around to grading that assignment, automatically all of the students' grades are going to show up as 0, and they may all freak out and wonder why they've got a 0 on an assignment they didn't submit and why their grade is so low. So it's probably best practice to have this selected where you're dropping ungraded items so it just doesn't show up and it's not calculated in your final overall grade until you input a score. Okay, and another option here for auto update, that it asks you, do you automatically want to keep your final grade updated, or do you want to continually publish that final grade? I would suggest to keep this selected so that it automatically calculates that final grade for you and that students can have the most up-to-date information for what their grades are in your course. So we'll continue. So in this section here, you have a choice as to whether or not you want to display percentage grades to students or letter grades. Okay, we're going to choose percentage just for the sake of it being the easiest option, and you know, it's easiest to see and understand visually. Students can understand what they have in their class based on a percentage, rather than having to look up what their numerical score is based on a letter grade. But again, it's up to personal preference. So we'll continue. Another small option, it's asking you how many decimal places do you want to display in your grades. The default is 2. You can always change it if you'd like. We'll stick with 2. And this step 6 is the student view display options. So this section is for how are the grades going to be displayed to students in the grade book. So when they log into their D2L shell, their course, and they go to grades, how is this going to appear to them visually? So you'll see under grade details, you have a couple options here. You can set it up as points grade, which is what we have our whole grade book set up as. So it makes sense to keep it this way. You can also create grade scheme color symbols and grade scheme colors. Basically, what this does is provide a visual view of where their grades are at in the course. So if they're failing, you can set it so that their grade book section, or the grade book, will appear in red, or sections of the grade book where they've failed at a certain assignment will appear in red, where their passing grades will appear in green. It's just another visual way to communicate their success in the class. So again, it's asking, how do you want the decimals to be displayed in the grade book, whereas the previous option asked how many decimal points do you want your grades to be calculated to. And characters displayed, so how many number of characters do you want to be displayed for the names of your assignments in the grade book? And then also, again, do you want to display the final grade calculation to the users? Do you want that score to automatically updated and projected to the students? And more than likely, yes, you do want that selected. it saves you from having to answer individual student questions about what their grades are through email. If they can access this immediately, remotely, it can save you a lot of time, and so students can understand exactly where they're at in your class. So step 7 out of 7, it just asks you to review all the information that we just went through to make sure everything looks right. Once you're finished, you hit the finish button, and you're done with the setup wizard. So you can take a look at the options that appear here, and I'm going to discuss one of the more important aspects of the grade book, which is a grade item. Grade items, first time I used D2L, I was confused about the purpose of grade items, but essentially grade items serve two purposes. The main one is that grade items are essentially assignments in your grade book. So when you want to create a new assignment in your grade book, you create a grade item so that it shows up as an assignment in that grade book for you to enter grades for. Secondly, grade items can be used to link your already existing quizzes that you've built in D2L or Dropboxes or discussion posts to the grade book so that those assignments can communicate to the grade book. So basically it serves two functions. It can serve the function of an assignment, or it can serve the function as a link between the digital D2L assignments that you've created and the grade book. And this will become more clear as you work with it and as we go through this, this lesson. So we're going to take a look at the Manage Grades section. Okay, so if you want to create a new assignment, brand new, you go to the Manage Grades section. Once you finish the Setup Wizard, really the only two tabs that you're mostly going to be using in this section are the Enter Grades tab and the Manage Grades tab. Manage Grades tab is the place that allows you to create a new grade item or a new grade category. Grade item, like we said, is an assignment. So we can go ahead now and create a grade item just to show you what it looks like. And again, you have a number of different options to choose from how you want this grade item to be set up. We're going to pick numeric because it's the most basic and most widely used. Once you're in the new item, you can give it a name. We'll just give it Final Project. You can give it a short name if you want. You don't have to. And then there's the category function. So if you notice back before when we hit the new button, we had an option to pick a new item or a new category. Categories essentially break up your grade book into different sections. So say you want to put together all of your homework assignments into one spot on the grade book so that they're grouped together and students can see all of the grades that they got visually in one place, in one section. You can create a category for that. Categories are also important if you set up a weighted grading book system, because that's where you're going to set up the percentage value for each of those categories. So if you want homework to be worth 15%, you'd have to have a weighted grade book set up and create a category for homework and attribute that to equal 15%. We're not going to go into great detail about that, but just so you know, that's an option that you can create categories for your homework assignments just to make them more organized. We won't do it in this case, but you'll see that there are none here until we create one. And we can go ahead and create one from this menu as well, just so you see what it looks like. Okay, so we have an assignment and a grade item, which is serving as our final project assignment. And we can type a description in here, give student directions. You can also, which is probably a really good idea, upload a document that outlines the assignment, the steps, and the requirements into this section for the students to view. So that you don't have to retype all that information. If you've already created that Word document that you'd hand out to your students in your face-to-face class as a printout, you can just upload that document right here, and they'll be able to click on it and read all those requirements and all those steps that are needed to successfully finish the assignment. Okay, and you can allow the users to view this item description if you want, or it can just be a description for your own benefit, your own well-being. So down below, you'll see under the grading section, this is where you're going to assign the point value for this assignment. Okay, let's say this assignment's worth 100 points, and you have more options down here that you can play with to customize the assignments. The first one is, do you want them to be able to exceed that amount and get bonus points? Is this, so the bonus section means, is this assignment itself a bonus assignment? Okay, if it is, that's where you'd want to click the bonus section. And for whatever reason, if you want to exclude this assignment from the final calculation, here you go. We're going to gloss over grade scheme because that's a little bit more in depth, and we're not going to look at grade schemes in this training. If you're interested, you can go take a look, and you can give us a call and we can talk about what that means. Another great tool that's built into D2L is rubrics. You can create and customize and add your own rubrics in D2L, and it makes grading in D2L a lot more quick and efficient. You can, once you create the rubric, you can attach it to one or many assignments and use that rubric basically to assess the students. It's a good way for you to communicate to students what requirements exist on the assignment, and it's a quick way for you to grade them. So instead of calculating in your head where they earned all their points, you can show them visually by clicking on these certain cells of the rubric that will automatically tally their grade. Again, we're not going to go into great detail, but the tool exists just so you're aware. So we have more options down here about student view, what the students can see, and managing their view. We're not going to go into depth about that just for the sake of time, but these are the basic fundamental aspects of this grade item tool. Okay, restrictions tab. I'm going to talk about the restrictions tab right now because when we go in to talk about Dropbox and quizzes, this will come up again. The restrictions tab is very useful. This is where you can set up the assignment's visibility to the users. So the first thing you could do is hide this assignment from users. If you're not ready to show the students the assignment yet, you can hide it from the user. In this case, this will hide it from the gradebook, so it won't show up in the gradebook. And availability is, when do you want the students to begin seeing this assignment? So you can click this and you can give it a date on the calendar and a time. And when do you want it to go away? When do you want it to disappear so that they can't see that anymore? And then you can also click this so it displays in your D2L course calendar automatically, so they can see when the deadline is for this assignment and you don't have to create another additional post. There's also release conditions, which allow you to give certain special students access, but it also allows you to create conditions for when this will show up, when it will go away, and that's a more advanced D2L technique, which we don't need to cover right now, but it is something to look into if you're interested in how this all functions. So we'll just save and close this. And we'll see that we now have a final project in our grades. That's the one assignment that we have. Now say we want to grade that assignment. We would go to Enter Grades, and we would see our students all listed down this row. And we will see right now they have no grades inputted. So that's what your next step is. So you want to look at, how can we grade this assignment for students? So if you look at our gradebook menu, we have a column for this particular assignment that we just created. On the either ends of those, we'll see their final grade, the student final grades is posted. That actually is a really good way to display those grades. At first, it may look silly that you have them both on either end, but once you have your gradebook filled up with more and more assignments, you'll have to scroll to the left and to the right, and it is kind of beneficial to have the final grades calculated on either end, just for your own your own sake. You can see it visually a lot better. So let's say we want to grade this assignment. You have one of two options. You can click on the little caret drop down and you can enter grades. Okay, so when you scroll down, you'll see that this option has opened up, and so we can give Matt Dillon a 90. Okay, Sam gets 100. Robin gets a 2, and Edward gets a 6. Okay, and then once you save that, it'll give you a prompt, and now it'll take you back to the gradebook, and we'll see that visually we can see who's passed, who's failed, and students will automatically see those grades updated and reflected in their gradebook. Alternatively, if you want to grade, you can switch to spreadsheet view, and this will have all your assignments, and you'll be able to edit those assignments down the column. And this is a good tool to use if you're grading multiple assignments at the same time rather than switching back and forth. Just use spreadsheet view and click and provide the grades, and don't forget to save. Okay, so that is essentially how grades work, how the grade book works, and how creating a grade item works. We're going to come back to grade items again in a second when we look at quizzes. So that's the next thing that we're going to discuss, is how do you assess students in D2L? Well, one of the tools that D2L has built in is the quiz function. And so we hit quizzes at the top, and we'll notice we have no quizzes in our section, but we have a few options. We're going to click Create New Quiz. Okay. Now, once you're in the quiz section, you'll have, again, a number of different tabs that you can go through to edit and customize and refine this one quiz that you're creating. Let's give it a name. Quiz number 1. And it won't allow you to go through the different tabs until you've actually named this, so just be aware of that. Again, you can give your quiz a category. And now, when you want to start creating your quiz questions, you'll have to click this button here. Okay, it's telling us that there's a new quiz building experience. Let's just leave it off for now. Eventually, D2L will give us and push up updates about for how these tools are used. But for now, we'll use the one that is default. All right, so we're in this new section, and we're in our quiz number 1 section, and we want to create a new question for this quiz. You'll see when we hit new, we have a number of different options here. You can create a section within your quiz to break up the quiz visually for students so that certain similar or like questions are grouped together. Or for whatever reason you want to organize this, you can use the section tool. You can create question pools, which allow you to kind of serves as a repository for all your quiz questions. So you can pull from you can pull from a pool and kind of randomize question choices that students get. It's a little bit more of an advanced tool, but it is an option there for you to kind of put all the quiz questions that you create into one section if you do want to pull from it for a final or something like that. So we'll have true and false questions, multiple choice, multi-select. There's a ton of different options. Essay, short answers, fill in the blanks, matching. There's even arithmetic and math-based equation questions that you can create in D2L. For our purpose, we're just going to look at creating a simple multiple choice question. So we'll see what happens when we click multiple choice. So a new window pops up, and we can type in our quiz question. So if you already have a quiz typed in your Word, you can copy and paste that in here if you'd like. It does take a little bit of time to build these, but at the end, you'll see that, especially with multiple choice and true and false, it can be quicker when it comes to grading because D2L offers the option of self-grading the quizzes for you, which is really nice. Once you're done developing the quiz once, you don't have to go and sift through a stack of papers and grade everybody's individual quizzes. D2L will grade them automatically for you. Now, obviously, they won't be able to grade short answer or essay questions, but ones that, like multiple choice, true and false, D2L has no problem calculating those for you and sending the results straight to the gradebook. So we'll enter a question right now just as an example. Okay, and you'll then be able to give answer choices that the students will choose from. Okay, so you can add more if you want. You can take them away if you only want to give fewer options, and you can select which is the correct answer. You also have the option to randomize the answers for each student. That helps minimize cheating. And then you can give a point value for this quiz question. If you want to keep going, you can hit save, but you could also hit this little caret by the button and hit save and new, and it will save this question and bring you to here so you can create another multiple choice question. If you want to switch the question type from here, you can, and just hit the drop down and say true or false. Okay, and create a true or false question and give it a point value, and again save and repeat. Okay, for now we're just going to save, and now you'll see we have our 2 quiz questions in our quiz. And let's say that we are done and we're happy with those 2 quiz questions. Of course, you can delete it, change the order, change the values, which means changing how much the quiz question is worth. But for now, we're happy with this, and we're going to hit done editing questions. So we're brought back to this main quiz menu. So we have our quiz questions. You'll see that they populated here. We can shuffle the questions at a quiz level, so they all appear in a different place for different students. It's another good option to prevent cheating. We can give a description for the quiz, an introduction for the quiz. You can allow hints if you'd like. And if you want a notification email for when students finish the quiz, you can enter that there, which I wouldn't suggest because you do get a number of notifications when students do complete and submit assignments and quizzes. But let's look back at the top. And remember, we talked about restrictions. Quizzes also have restrictions, so you can set the dates for when they're due, when they're going to show up, when they'll go away, just the same as the grade item. And we're going to look at the assessment tab. Now, assessment tab is important because we have this quiz, but right now it's not going to be reflected in the grade book. It doesn't automatically get a grade item created. You'll have to do that yourself, and you can do it in the assessment tab. Okay, so what of that actual quiz that you're creating? So what you'll do is hit the assessment tab, and you'll see you'll have a number of options. You want this to be automatically graded. I do. So we're going to click that and allow the attempt to be graded immediately upon completion. So as soon as the students are done the quiz, they hit submit, and that quiz will be automatically graded, and the score will be tallied and sent straight to the grade book. So to make that happen, you need to create a grade item and link it to the grade book. So right here, we'll see we have the final project grade item, but we don't want to associate our quiz to that. That would cause confusion. We want to create a new grade item for this one quiz. So we'll get a pop-up, and we're going to give this grade item a name. This is the name that's going to show up in the grade book. Probably best practice is to name this grade item exactly what you named the quiz, just so it minimizes confusion for yourself and your students. You don't want to have different names for different quizzes and grade items. So they won't understand what points are being shown in the grade book. So again, you can add descriptions, and you want to make sure that your points in the grade item match the points with the quiz. And we made a quiz that was 2 points. It was 1 point each. We don't want to be able them to exceed it. It's not bonus. We're not excluding it from the calculation. We don't want any other restrictions. Let's hit save. Okay, so now we have the grade item that's attaching this quiz to the grade book. and I want to automatically export that to the gradebook. So I'm going to click this option. Okay. You can also change the amount of attempts that students can take on the quiz. Say if you want to give them more than one shot at it, you can, just by choosing the option on this drop down and then hitting apply. Okay. Also in this section, you can say I'm going to give them 2 chances, and I'll take their highest attempt and apply that to the gradebook, or their lowest, or their average of the attempts. So however you want to set this, this assignment up. We're going to skip over the objectives tab. You can associate learning objectives, but that's not necessary for the functioning of the quiz in the gradebook, so we'll gloss over that. Submission views and report views are also 2 functions that I'm not going to go into great detail about, but essentially they allow you to customize what you want the students to see as soon as they're done finishing their quiz. How much information do you want them to see? When do you want them to see the information? Do you want them to see all the questions and the answers for those questions? Do you want them to see just their responses? How do you want to set up that submission? The default is that immediately they'll see their quiz and their score, but they won't get to see the questions. Now you can go in and you can customize that and change that by adding another view or changing the default view. But for our purpose, we're not going to go into great detail about that. Just know that it's an option for when you do create a quiz. So let's save and close. So there's our quiz. In the quiz section. Right now, the students will not be able to see this quiz because you see this little crossy eye icon. That means that the quiz is hidden. And the next icon beside that just means that you do have the quiz attached to a grade item. Just a little identifier just to let you know that you've done it and set it up correctly and it is communicating with the gradebook. Let's allow students to see this quiz by clicking on the little drop down caret, and you'll see that you can make this quiz visible to users. Now it's gone. Now they can see it. When they hit quizzes, it's going to show up in their quiz section and they can take the quiz. So they'll click on it and hit start quiz. We can preview what the quiz looks like too, and you'll see that there's a little start quiz button just to get another view of what the students might see when it's all finished. Let's just take a quick look and see if we're right, see if our quiz did show up in the gradebook. It's showing up here already. We'll go to the enter grade section and there it is. Okay. Now again, these questions will automatically be graded since they're multiple choice true and false. Whenever these students complete it, these numbers will automatically be populated. So we won't have to add anything in there unless, of course, you have a short answer or essay question response in that quiz. You will have to go in and manually grade those sections of the quiz and add point values just for those questions, which will then automatically update that information. Okay, so that is the quiz function in a nutshell. I don't think I'm forgetting anything about that. If I do, I'll come back to it at another time. So now let's look at. Actually, you know what? I'm going to just show you one more thing about the quizzes, and this is just how the quizzes can be shown and displayed to students. As it is now, the quiz will only show up in the quiz section, so students will have to go to the quiz section. If I want it to show up in this module 1 section, I can do that by clicking add existing activities, going down to quizzes, and my quiz will show up. And now it shows up in this string of resources and information for the students to access. So they could go along their readings, look at the images, go to their links, and then take the quiz. So it's just another way to visually show the quiz and what assignments are due. It's a nice option for students. Just, you know, cover yourself and display it in as many places as possible. So the next option is the Dropbox assignment submission tool. This tool is used for allowing your students to submit larger assignments to you remotely. So if you have students writing essays or creating PowerPoint presentations, you can have them upload and submit those documents to you from their computers using this Dropbox tool. So what we'll need to do is go to the Dropbox menu and we'll create a new Dropbox folder. Okay, so we'll give it a name. And here is where you can upload all the instructions, all the information. You can add attachments. Again, if you've already have that typed out and completed, just add it as a file so that you don't have to write it all over again. I can show you this as an example. Joe has one that's already created on the desktop, so you can either click the upload button and find it, or you can drag and drop it from the place that you have it stored on your computer, and you'll see it shows up, and we'll add it. Now this will be displayed for the students to view when they click on it. All those steps and all the requirements will all be displayed for the students, so it saves you from having to retype all that information again. All right, so you have more options here in the Dropbox. So what kind of assignment is this? Is this individual? Is this for one student to complete, or is it a group assignment? Group assignments, usually you're only going to select that if you've set up groups in D2L. For now, we're just going to say stick with individual assignments. You can set up groups in D2L so that smaller groups of students get different information, but that's a training for a different time. So submission type, file submission. This is, we want them to upload their PDFs or their Word documents, so it will be a file. Do we want them to type in text? Is this an on-paper submission? For our purposes, since we're remote, it won't be on paper. You're not going to have your students mailing you the essay. Or is this an event where it's observed in person? You know that just so you know, those options exist. But for our sake, we're going to use file submission. And how many files do you want to allow the students to submit? Unlimited or just one per person? Unlimited's probably, it's the default, and it's probably the best option to choose just in case the student uploads the wrong file, gives them another chance to upload the right file. And submissions, what do you want to do with them? Do you want to keep them all? Do you want only the most recent submission to be kept, or only one submission allowed? Again, probably best practice to just allow all submissions to be kept. That way you have them all as a backup in case there was a mistake made. Again, you can send notification emails, you can set categories, and here's where we're going to give our essay assignment a score. So we're going to give it points out of 50. And here we have to assign this a grade item so that it communicates with the grade book. Right now we'll see that there is a final project grade item in there. We don't want to use that for our final project, so again we'll create a new grade item. It'll give us an option, and we can say this is essay number 1. Remember to rename this grade item the same, or name the grade item the same thing that you named the Dropbox, just to minimize confusion. Okay, and we said 50 points. It can't exceed it. No bonus. We want it to be part of the calculation, and we can set all those availability dates if we'd like. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and hit save. Okay. Now, again, we can set up a rubric, and rubrics are very beneficial for providing students with information about what the assignments require, and it helps you grade a lot quicker. It does take time to build on the back end, but once you have it done, grading will be a lot smoother. But we'll look at that another time. Okay, so we have all of this information set up. We've looked at restrictions in the past. Let's go ahead and save and close. And we'll see by default it's hidden, and it is connected to the gradebook with a grade item. Let's make this visible to our users. so that our students can see it. So again, they can view this through the Dropbox button on the nav bar, or like we did with quizzes, you can add it to the content area by clicking the add an existing object. So it'll show up in multiple places. Okay. Now, once you start getting submissions, you will be notified. I'm not sure if I can show that. There's no way for me to show that now without having somebody submit. But you will see in this section where the student submissions will be populated. So you'll see their name, you'll see the file that they've attached, and you'll be able to click on that file and review the file and give it a grade so that it will be pushed out to the gradebook. Obviously, the Dropbox tool doesn't have an auto grade feature. This is something that you'll have to go through and read and assess on your own because these are larger assignments. But this is where it will show up in this section right here. You can also filter the submission results and see what students have not yet submitted it, and you can send out an email reply to those students who have not submitted the Dropbox assignment yet, or the submission assignment. So it's a quick way to send them. It's an automatic blind carbon copy. It's going to be sent out to them. You can write them a little note just to remind them that this assignment is overdue or it's about to be due. Just reaching out to them to make sure that they have the correct information and they know that the assignment's due. Okay. So let's just take a look just to make sure that it does show up in our gradebook. Sorry, let's hit grades at the top. And we'll see our SA1 is here. We want to enter grades. Here's our spot where we can enter the information for each grade. We can do it there, or we can do it in the submission view for the Dropbox as well. Okay, once we hit save, all those grades will be updated and we can see their scores visually show up and appear. So we can see who's passing, who's failing, who's struggling. Just going to check the time. We have a little bit of time left here before we go into questions.
Show, for example, Q1. I'll read this question. This will be good.
Okay, I'm going to go and listen to one of Joe's questions here regarding quizzes, just to cover that now. Or grade item, yes.
How do you delete a grade item if you created something and then decide you don't want to need it?
So that's a great question. The question was, how do you delete a grade item from the gradebook in case you created something and then you don't want that to exist in the gradebook anymore? So what you do is go to your grades in the nav bar, and automatically you'll be sent to the manage grades section, and that's where we want to be. So let's say that we don't want this quiz anymore. We're going to click on the quiz and we're going to hit more actions and then delete. It's going to take you to this menu again where you're going to have to select the quiz. Now, this is good. Okay, I missed a step here, and this is a good place for us to see why this is happening. So since we're in this deleted, we want to delete this, it won't allow me to do it. It will only allow me to check the final project. The reason for this is that it's because these assignments are connected to the gradebook through those grade items to those actual assignments. So we have to disassociate those assignments from the grade item before we're able to delete them from the grade book. So that's what we'll do right now. Just really quickly, let's say we want to delete this quiz. So we'll go back to the quiz and we can go in and edit the quiz. And we'll go to our assessment tab. That is where the grade items show up. And we're going to take it and disassociate it from the grade item and hit save. Now, when we head back to grades, we should be able to select that quiz that we want to delete, hit more options, delete. Now it's allowing us to delete that quiz. Essay, we still can't because it's associated to that Dropbox item. So let's go ahead and delete it. It's going to give us a little warning to make sure we know what we're doing here. We delete it. Okay, now it's gone. Now it won't show up in our gradebook anymore. We just have our essay and we have our final project. All right. Since we have a little bit of time before the question and answer session, I'm going to give you guys a little general overview of discussions. Discussions are a really good tool and a good way to have students communicating with each other, with you, discussing concepts that exist in the course, sharing projects, sharing ideas. It's a great way to have students interacting with one another asynchronously, so at different times. So we'll hit the discussion tab at the top, and you'll see when you hit new, you can create a new forum and a new topic. Basically, a forum is an overarching kind of discussion area where it's a container where you can create multiple discussion topics for students to engage with. So we're for our purpose, let's just go into a new topic because this will be the new board. Okay, so here we are with very similar options that we've had before. You will need a forum because I guess they all have to be within a container. So we'll just name this discussion number 1. Okay, and this one will be about cats. All right, so this description area is where you can ask your question or pose your ideas that you want the students to discuss, and all the requirements that the students will have to do to perform and to succeed in the discussion post. Typically, instructors have students post once and respond on 2 other students' work. You could set up discussion posts that way, or you can set up discussion posts in a more Socratic method where you have a few different posts where you pose different questions and you have students responding to that question and then in turn to each other's responses. So students are directly creating kind of a waterfall effect of answering the question, then responding to a student's answer, then someone responding to that student's response, and so on and so on. It kind of makes things a little more challenging, and it ensures that students are actively reading and engaged in the discussion boards. So here's where you'll put the requirements, and the default options here are, as you can see, deselected. So we don't want anyone to post anonymously. Automatically, the students can just post. A moderator, which would be yourself, doesn't have to approve their post. Some instructors like to choose this option where users have to start a thread or answer a question before they can see any other students' responses. So it kind of minimizes them copying other people's ideas. But again, that's up to you. You can use ratings for posts if you'd like. Default is no ratings. Again, you have your restrictions where you can hide this from the users. You can set the availability, when it's going to show up for them in the Dropbox, when it's going to disappear from them, all right, as well as our assessment tab again for grade items. If we want to connect it to the gradebook, we'll create a new grade item. We'll give this a score. This is where we can add a rubric for you grading the discussion posts. Okay, I'm getting asked to go and take a look at the restrictions tab again. And just to give an overview of the locking options, that personally I'm not totally familiar with. So Joe's going to chime in here and give us an overview of what the locking options do.
Yes, so everybody, this could prove helpful for you. So if you want to set the availability of a discussion topic, of course you could put a start and end date. That's the time period when a discussion topic is visible to your students. The locking options mean this. The locking options allow you to control how long they have to actually post reply threads to the discussion topic. For example, I want to have at the beginning of a semester, a general introductions topic. Tell us your name, a favorite hobby, what your major is, and what year you are in at HACC, something like that. We want those to remain visible to the students, available to the students throughout the semester, so they could always jump back in and read about something if they want to. But we would only want them to be able to actually post in there for, let's say, the first couple weeks of the semester. So that's where you could put the unlock start and end time. All right, so that's important. Let's pick one more example. Let's say you've created a discussion for a particular chapter in a textbook or something like that, and you want students to participate in a particular period of time, but what they participate in, what they provide, is content you want to remain visible for the rest of the semester, for a review, whatever. But we don't want students being able to post in there after the deadline for that discussion topic. So the availability, you can make it always available so they could see it, but you would set the locking dates so that they could only actually post to that discussion thread for that particular period of time. Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's important to keep in mind.
Great. That's great. Okay. So we're winding down here on time, but let's just save and close this final discussion topic, and we'll just take a little quick look at what it looks like when we go in. You can engage as the instructor with the students in this area, so you can help guide the conversation if you see it might be getting off track, or you can pose new posts or new questions to kind of have the students dig a little bit deeper. So it kind of models a discussion that you would have in class, but it's asynchronous. And you know, it is a great place for you to communicate and engage with students and be visible to them. So that's a general overview of the assessment tools that D2L offers, from the Gradebook to quizzes, Dropbox, and discussions. We'll start the question and answer time now. I guess there's probably some questions that have already popped up, so I can answer some of those now if you have any.
Yeah, so we have a few.